First thing to specify is that there's no such thing really as canon in Tolkien.
The canons of narrative in any medium cannot be wholly different, and the failure of poor films is often precisely an exaggeration and in the intrusion of unwarranted matter owing to not perceiving where the core of the original lies.
Nerdrotic.com.
Greetings, you over 1 million hellions and the 40% who haven't subscribed yet.
It's done. It's over now.
Well, almost. At least I don't have to watch an episode of Rings of Power Season 1 or 2 ever again, but there's still one more to cover. While the penultimate episode of Season 2 was the worst of the series by far, the finale is its dumbest. It devolves into absurdity, and you can just forget the lore or the canon that doesn't exist according to the Tolkien professor. This is just a bad TV show. And it shouldn't be a surprise to anyone at this point that showrunners J.D. Payne and Patrick McKay, who spent over a decade in Hollywood, including a few years at Bad Reboot, and the only thing they managed to accomplish was a partial credit on a bad Star Trek movie. And then some genius at Amazon decided to put these two clowns in charge of one of the most venerated stories of all time, who set out to make Tolkien for dummies, and it turned out to be Tolkien by dummies. The good news is the last couple of installments have been unintentionally hilarious, so let's get this over with so we don't have to talk about it for at least a couple of more years, or even better, ever again.
I have no right to ask this of any of you, but will you follow me? One last time.
Previously on the Rings of Power.
Let the half-hoods be your sole concern. I will see to the Eastar myself.
The Dark Wizard found his staff, and now the time has come for you to find yours.
There's something under the mines.
That's a huge fish! Innocent!
Once the deceiver obtains a being's trust, he gains the ability to sculpt their very thoughts.
The High King believes I may be vulnerable to deception.
No shit.
This is all his design! This is what Sauron wants! You forgot your bling bling.
I may have forgotten to mention that the finale is incredibly dumb and it doesn't waste any time. Let's get straight to the stupid. We open up in Khazad-dûm with Durin versus Durin. Durin demands Durin take off the ring, then Durin cries. Then Durin digs too greedily and too deep by himself. After that, Durin calls over Durin to check out the cavern full of mithril he just found and something else. Remember the Balrog from Lord of the Rings? And even though canonically, and I'm looking at you, Tolkien professor, the Balrog shouldn't show up for thousands of years, he's here. Oh, I'm sorry, this is the Rings of Power I'm talking about. She's here. This is the point where the Rings of Power exemplifies why canonically there's only one Durin at a time.
Durin! Durin! Durin!
I mean, is Durin asking for help from Durin, or is Durin just yelling at Durin? I don't know. Anyway, Durin looks on as Durin decides to self-delete by attacking the Balrog that Amazon obviously licensed from Warner Brothers. I can hear you now, dear viewer. Why did Durin do this? It's completely pointless. It's not like it's going to buy anybody any time, and you'd be right. So now I have a couple of questions for you, dear viewer. What do you think happens next? The Balrog license from Warner Brothers destroys Khazad-dûm and kills every dwarf in it, or the Rings of Power rolls its opening credits and we never see the Balrog again. If you guessed the latter, you unfortunately have watched the Rings of Power. But we did get an explanation from showrunners J.D. Payne and Patrick McKay why the Balrog just goes back to sleep and doesn't bother anybody in Khazad-dûm for thousands of years. Because the fall of Khazad-dûm and the Balrog are an allegory, and we know how much the professor liked those, of climate change. When asked by The Hollywood Reporter why the Balrog just didn't destroy Khazad-dûm right there and then, McKay responds, "This is the thing where, how do societies fall? Usually it's gradual, and then all at once. If you want to use climate change as a metaphor, climate change is not an event. Climate change is a process that ebbs and flows."
You gotta be f***ing kidding.
There are a few storylines that the showrunners decided to mop up in the finale, and I'm going to go over them with the same care they did. But I want to give the showrunners credit. If they are going to truncate the entire Second Age into a shorter timeline and include the events of Numenor, which canonically, Tolkien professor, take place well over 1,000 years after the events of Region, it takes a certain commitment to incompetence to take Isildur, the man who cut the ring from Sauron's hand, and turn him into a supporting character, with less screen time than the Amazon original characters female Sam, female Frodo, or modernity. And all he does is bond with Theo after he's abandoned by his surrogate father Don Lemonless, saw that one coming, makes out with the married Tolkien in Tolkien, and then fucks off to Numenor after finding out his father's a traitor and Ar-Pharazôn is the king. Speaking of Numenor, after Ar-Pharazôn is chosen as king because an eagle landed next to him, his throne is now threatened because Miriel gets spit out by a white sea worm, and yes, this is the same Miriel that's described in Tolkien's Legendarium as being fairer than ivory, pearls, or silver. And although the elves had a hard time getting a message in and out of Lindon or Region, one made it to Westerness.
We have learned why Miriel was able to bewitch the sea.
And Ar-Pharazôn has branded Miriel and her faithful as traitors for being in league with Sauron. And after fucking up the lore beyond all recognition so they can give Miriel some agency, all in effort to remove the mighty Elendil's agency. First, he's saved by his daughter, an Amazon original character with a nice rack, who for the life of me, I can't remember her name. And all this is done so Miriel can send the mighty Elendil on his path. She even gives him Narsil of the Shards of Narsil, you know, the blade that cut the ring from Sauron's hand, in another repurposed scene.
It is called Narsil.
The white flame.
Reclaim your lordship, and with this sword, your destiny.
Anduri, the flame of the west, forged from the shards of Narsil.
Sauron will not have forgotten the sword of Elendil.
Elendil rides off into exile and Miriel gets arrested, and thus ends this installment of The Numenorian and the Restless. You know, we haven't heard from the Dark Wizard, female Sam, female Frodo, or Gandalf in a while, so let's get this one over with. There is some good news though. We finally get the big payoff that they've been setting up for over 2 seasons that absolutely everyone saw coming. All while setting up another obvious mystery that will have 5s and 10s of people talking about it until season 3 comes out in 2026. Gandalf finally reunites with the Harfoots and the Stores, and confronts the Dark Wizard, who confirms he's one of the 5 wizards who are not supposed to show up until 1,000 years into the Third Age.
We are as kin. 5 of us there were.
Not to get too far in the weeds, but he could be one of the blue wizards, but I think it's far more likely that he's going to be another. After the Dark Wizard kills one of the bad guys from Furiosa, he claims not to be a Dark Wizard and asks Gandalf to join him, but when he refuses, the Dark Wizard decides to show how bad things will be under Sauron by killing all the Harfoots and the Stores. I'm starting to like this guy. Gandalf pulls a Rey Palpatine and saves all the Harfoots and the Stores. Except for this one, the Dark Wizard fucks off and says, "We'll meet again someday," and I half expected someone to say, "What a sour man." It's way too soon though. That scene will probably happen in season 3 or 4. But if you think that sounds stupid, just wait, because we do get Gandalf's name in the most cringe way possible.
Don't be a stranger now.
No, God!
Thank you kindly, Grandalf.
No, God, please, no! No!
Goodbye, Grandalf.
No!
Gandalf.
No!
And I'm still gonna call him Gandalf. So he finds his stick, he gets his name, he goes back to Jedi Master Bombadil, and it's time for some more repurposed dialogue from Harry Potter.
A wizard does not find his staff. It finds him.
The wand chooses the wizard, Mr. Potter.
But we did get a line from female Sam that unintentionally describes the state of this show perfectly.
Some things can't be fixed. Some things lost are lost forever. Because this world's so much bigger than any of us. We've just got to accept it. What's broke is broke and won't fix.
And there's some potential good news or bad news. They separate Dangal from female Sam and female Frodo, so they could be writing the Harfoots and the Stewards out of the story or giving them their own. Considering what they did this season, which was absolutely nothing, I'm leaning towards being written out of the story. Either way,
I don't care.
So let's check in on one of the multiple ships from this show, Sauron Brimbor. And just in case you think I'm being a bit hyperbolic, the Rings of Power creators on that big season 2 finale reveal and Sauron's mistake, from the stranger's identity reveal to Galadriel's fight and whether Sauron and Celebrimbor were lovers.
Oh, fuck off!
While Sauron is using Grandma Brimbor as a pincushion and torturing him, he brings up the fall of Gondolin.
Have you ever seen orcs in the heat of combat? The frenzy comes over them, the blood hunger. When Gondolin fell, they say it went on for weeks.
Keep Gondolin's name out your fucking mouth!
If you want to know more about it, read the book. It's fucking awesome. And it should be no surprise Amazon completely fucks up the tragic end of Celebrimbor. Canonically, his dead body is used by Sauron as a battle standard. In the Rings of Power, Grandma Brimbor goads Sauron into skewering him by spoiling the end of Lord of the Rings.
The rings of power shall destroy you, and in the end, I foresee one alone shall prove your utter ruin! Oh, come on!
And his final words, I shit you not, are calling Sauron the Lord of the Rings.
I am their master.
No, you are their prisoner, Sauron, Lord of the Rings.
What is this, amateur hour? But wait! There's more!
This is followed by Sauron crying again.
Are you him? Are you Sauron?
I have many names.
Yeah, and I guess one of them is Pussy. The last time we saw Galadriel, she was given the 9 rings for men to put their fingers in to get as far away from Region as possible. But when we catch up with our warrior of the wasteland, elven commander, slayer of orcs, girl boss, girl Barian, her dumbass is back in Region. So they can show her saving some women and little girls because men and boys don't matter. I mean, how do you expect me to believe that little 5'4" Morphic Clark is gonna save anyone? Just a reminder, Galadriel's supposed to be 6'4". Anyway, they run into some orcs and Galadriel gives herself up and offers up the 9 rings for men to put their fingers in, as long as the orcs spare the women and little girls. At this point, the only thing the orcs should be saying is,
Do it, kill her! Kill her!
and everybody else and rip the rings off her dead body. Instead, the kinder and gentler orcs honor the deal and take her to Adar, who already has Nenya. And despite the ring Nenya healing Adar because Galadriel is so wonderful, he gives it back. Once again, he offers her an alliance, and this time Galadriel's going to accept.
Let this ring heal the rift between elf and orc.
What?
This is followed by one of the dumbest exchanges in one of the dumbest shows ever made, and the worst misrepresentation of an adapted character in herstory.
Help me vanquish Sauron with it, and I swear to you, I will recall my children to Mordor, never to make war on Middle-earth again.
What?
I have slain more of your children than any elf alive.
What the fuck?
Far be it from me to point out that the Lady of Light is about to ally herself with the elf who committed genocide in the south and just sacked Region. But not to worry, because the alliance doesn't last long. You remember Glug, the hard torturing and pillaging orc who just wants to provide for his family, betrays Adar. And then he gets Caesared as Sauron looks on. And what does Galadriel do? Does she A, honor the sacrifice Celebrimbor made for her and run away as far as she can, considering she has the ring Nenya, the 9 rings for men to put their fingers in, and nobody's paying attention to her? Or B, stand around like an idiot so we can set up some stupid fight between her and Sauron? If you guessed the latter, unfortunately you have watched the Rings of Power. Meanwhile, back in Region, the battle is over. Sauron has ordered all but the commanders be killed, so what the hell is Don Lemonless doing there? And didn't he get shanked a couple of times last episode and was left dying? Well, it looks like he found a healing elixir that fixed his armor. Somehow High District Manager Gil-Gadaddy, who canonically stood toe-to-toe with the real Sauron, finds himself in an orc's chokehold. And Doogie Elrond looks on as the orcs represent Jeff Bezos' treatment of the professor's work. And wouldn't you know it, they're saved by Deus Ex Dwarves. I guess that Balrog was
Barely an inconvenience.
And now, the moment you've all been waiting for, the battle of the Second Age. In this corner, weighing in at 105 pounds with her armor on, she's slain more orcs than any elf alive, the Lady of Fight, Galadriel! In the opposite corner, her opponent, can she change him? The master of wigs and the dark lord who feels really bad about it, sensitive Sauron. Eventually, Sauron gets the best of Galadriel, and this is my favorite scene in the entire series. Now, never mind the fact, despite the Tolkien professor saying canon doesn't exist, canonically, Sauron never got near any of the elven rings. He's close to one now, and he was able to take the 9 rings for men to put their fingers in. And considering Sauron just shanked Galadriel with Morgoth's pinky ring, you may ask yourself, why doesn't he just cut the ring from her hand like Isildur does to him later? Nope, for some reason he needs her consent and he doesn't get it. Instead, Galadriel in this show fall off a cliff. That's about 2,000 or 3,000 feet high and she lands like Wile E. Coyote. Oh my god, I can't take this stupidity anymore. Let's just get it over with. The dwarves aren't bothered by the Balrog anymore, but they have some politics to deal with. Sauron fucks off with the 9 rings for men to put their fingers in. Of course, Galadriel isn't smashed into jelly, and Doogie Elrond heals her with Nenya, and we find out why. After getting their asses thoroughly kicked by the orcs, the 3 men needed to ask the woman who caused all this mess by not telling anybody Halbrand was Sauron what to do next.
What course would you advise, Commander Galadriel?
You can talk to me, you know, I'm standing right here.
And apparently her genius idea was to have High District Manager Gil Gadaddy put his sword up in the air. That's it. Thus ends another abysmal season of the worst adaptation of a literary work of all time. A subversive, systematic, deliberate dismantling of the professor's work to reflect the Los Angeles they live in today. The only questions I have left are, who are they going to ship Galadriel with next? Maybe her husband, Celeborn. And when are they going to show the Dwarven, Elven, and Hobbit genocide? And maybe we'll get the answers to these questions when the series ends in 2030. But I'll give them credit for this. The all-female directors they had for this season proved that women can suck as much as men. So we'll end with some unsolicited advice for Jeff Bezos. You took on the Tolkien fandom, and it was an embarrassing loss. So here's what you do. Fire everybody, and anybody involved with this show above crew level should never be able to work in Hollywood again, and cancel this show. Take that money and distribute it amongst your warehouse workers. That would pump some money in the economy and make the world a better place. Or you could just continue to burn hundreds of millions of dollars. The choice is up to you. Hail to the Fellowship and fuck this show.
Nerdrotic.com.
If you like what you heard, please like, share, and subscribe. If you didn't like what you heard, I thank you for listening this long. I will see you in the next video.
It's done. Yes, Mr. Frodo. It's over now.